Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about what actually is Dungeons and Dragons, and what are the actual boundaries of Gary Gygax's legacy, and what we learned from the huge 2024 January story that came out, which turned out to be false, right? But the story, literally 1,000 internet sources were saying, hey, Dungeons and Dragons, the entire intellectual property is going to be bought by a massive multinational, massive multimedia international conglomerate with revenues of $500 billion. And with $500 billion, that meant that the valuation on Dungeons and Dragons could be 20, 40, 60 billion dollars reasonably, which could break records on the intellectual property sale. I actually now believe, based on the 2024 Dungeons and Dragons massive multimedia international conglomerate buzz event where everybody discussed this, it turned out to not be true, but everybody discussed it, and everybody started thinking, what will the sale of Dungeons and Dragons be? And I have learned a tremendous amount of Dungeons and Dragons through this event, right? Its real value, I truly believe, is $60 billion. I think that is the correct amount. And that means it's not some little, Dungeons and Dragons should never be bought by some jank little, like, oh, Larion, oh, that's cute. You make some video games. Thank you, next, right? Like, we're really not interested in $1 or $2 billion. That's cute, but no. Like, 20, 40, 60 billion dollars is the true value of Dungeons and Dragons. I think that's what we just learned, right? Because no one batted an eye. No one batted an eye when the story was, hey, a massive multimedia international conglomerate is going to buy Dungeons and Dragons. Nobody thought twice. Everybody's like, of course, absolutely. Yeah, $500 billion in revenue, probably 20, 40, $60 billion sale. Sure, that's fine. Break every single IP a record. Yeah, no problem. I totally believe that. Because that's where we are, right? You know, last year, Dungeons & Dragons, incredible canon hardbacks. Dungeons & Dragons, the video game of the year. Not fantasy game, not D&D game, not XYZ, whatever label you want. Like, all the video games. It was the best video game of all the video games, right? It was the best video game of all the video games. And then Blockbuster. You know, international blockbuster, $11 million paid to Chris Pine. One person in the movie was paid $11 million. Of course, this is the most Dungeons and Dragons. I think this is what we learned from the 2024 massive multimedia international conglomerate buzz event, that Dungeons and Dragons is the most valuable intellectual property in the world, bar none, bar none, bar none. Right? And so it's really fascinating. But what I want to talk about today is, I was wrong. I thought, you know, like, okay, Aang from Avatar: Last Airbender, he comes to Sokka, right? And his sister Katara, right? And they're like, and I think Sokka's like, you're gonna make me a better bender, right? And Katara's like, no, Aang ain't here to make you a better bender, right? Like, well, actually, Sokka didn't bend. He's not better to, like, Sokka's like, you're gonna make me a better warrior, right? Like, Aang didn't come to make Sokka a better warrior. Aang came to save the world, and I was wrong. I thought that Gary Gygax created Dungeons and Dragons as an identity engine, as an accomplishment engine, as a protection engine, never as a game, in my humble opinion. That he made it that way specifically to help individual dungeon masters and individual dungeon performers. I was wrong. Gary Gygax built Dungeons and Dragons to save the world. And that's exactly what we saw with the 2024, in my humble opinion, that's exactly what was proven by the 2024 massive multimedia international conglomerate buzz event, okay? What we all walked away saying, okay, we all get it now. Dungeons and Dragons is going to get bought by a company. That company thinks they're going to own a little intellectual property, but whatever country owns that company that buys Dungeons and Dragons will be completely fixed. Will be mostly fixed, will be massively fixed, not completely fixed, massively fixed, right? And why do we know this? Because that's exactly what Dungeons and Dragons did for America, right? In 1974, where were we in the harmony of humanity in America, right? Where were we in making sure that everyone who loved one another based on the color of their skin equally, everyone loved each other based on the differences in their culture equally, everyone loved each another based on their differences societally equally in America, everyone loved everyone another individually equally because of whatever preference they had, or all these things. Dungeons and Dragons fixed all of this at the 95% level, okay? Harmony between people of different colors. Diana in the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon. Every charismatic, confident, intelligent person in America saw that black women were everything, right? Like, and could do everything, and were super intelligent, and were charismatic, confident, and intelligence, and should be treated equally, and could adventure and do everything, right? And then, as over those 50 years, Dungeons and Dragons was like, you be you, right? Like, actually, Dungeons and Dragons was like, you be more than you. You be everything you want to be. Be every preference you want to be, right? Be every person you want to be, right? And pour yourself into these player characters, and then take back whatever you need, right? Your identity is malleable, right? And we're like, yeah, gender preference, all of it's completely malleable. Be what you want to be. You know, you are a dragon slayer, you are a conqueror, you are an incredible person, right? And every single charismatic, confident, intelligent person went out, and they went into every institution in America, and they shared this progressiveness. And Dungeons and Dragons alone, right? Based on the seeding, Johnny Apple seeding work that it did with every charismatic, confident, intelligent America since 1974, it has 95% fixed. I'm convinced Diana the Acrobat is the reason President Barack Obama was the first American person of color president, first black president, because of Diana the Acrobat, because of Gary Gygax's work, right? And what we now know is we get to pick, right? Dungeons and Dragons should not remain an American should not remain an American brand for even another year. I think it should be sold. And what we get to do as the D&D community is we get to pick, what country do we want to fix? Because wherever Dungeons and Dragons goes, it will burst through every limitation that government has set for its people. It will burst through every limitation that culture has set for its people. It will burst through every limitation that society has set for its people. It will burst through every single limitation each individual in that nation has set for themselves. And the power of Dungeons, and the power of Dragons, and the power of Gary, and the power of Gygax, and the power of imagination will fundamentally fix that nation. So our question is, where does it belong? Should we sell it to Russia so they'll stop the war in Ukraine? That's what would happen. If Russia owns Dungeons and Dragons, the war in Ukraine would end within 3 months. Right? It would fix that nation. It would fix the lack of harmony that is there right now. All right? Any nation that owns Dungeons and Dragons gets fixed. America was fixed at the 95% level. And that's exactly so whatever country we want to fundamentally change the infrastructure of, we simply sell them Dungeons and Dragons. Within a year, everything will be different. Every limitation set by the people, the culture, the society, and the individual will be broken, shattered, burned away in the breath of the dragon itself. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I hear your humble opinion. When you get in your comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.